Hello, welcome or welcome back. I have some books here that I'm really excited to talk about that I read last month. I'm feeling a little sleepy, so I've got a coffee with me and we're just gonna get right into it. I started December off so strong. I read this book that was recommended to me by my close friend and I'm so glad that I picked it up because it wasn't something that I would have normally picked myself. I bought it when I was in an airport because I knew that if I had a flight, I would be forced to get into it. And I'm so happy I did because this was just such an incredible story. The book was The Nightingale by Kristin. The synopsis of this book from kristinhanna.com is: The Nightingale tells the stories of two sisters separated by years and experience, by ideals, passion, and circumstance, each embarking on her own dangerous path toward survival, love, and freedom in German-occupied, war-torn France. A heartbreakingly beautiful novel that celebrates the resilience of the human spirit and the durability of women. It is a novel for everyone, a novel for a lifetime. I was really excited to realize that the characters, while they were not real people and it was a historical fiction book, they were based on real people. Isabel's escape route through the mountains for downed airmen was actually based on a 24-year-old Belgian woman who helped aviators and others escape, which I thought was so cool. And this book did such a beautiful job of capturing the women's war and detailing the role that women played in World War II. It showed this through the two sisters' journeys, and the sisters contrasted each other in personality really well, so we got to kind of learn about each of them through the other. It showed how two people cut from the same cloth can end up so wildly different. And while they had traits in common, they had so many different opinions. So it was really, really interesting to read, especially if you're someone with siblings. This book did make me cry, which doesn't happen that often in books. And it was just so heartbreaking. It was honestly kind of the epitome of what a good book is to me. Like when people ask why I love reading so much, I feel like I would want to just impart onto them this book and everything in it because it just did such a good job with the writing style, building compelling characters who you really care about through the entire book. I still am thinking about them over a month later. The ending of this book has been living rent-free in my mind. Honestly, although I thought that it was brilliant and I understood why she ended it and why each character got the ending that they did, I wish that I could change it because I care about the characters so much, and without spoiling it, I just wanted everyone to have the most beautiful happy ending, and that's just not realistic for real life, but I thought about it so much, which I don't usually think about the plot of a book too often. I'll think about the vibes and the characters, but I don't think about plot that often, and I don't think about how would I change anything that happened. So the fact that I was thinking about it, I feel like really spoke to how good the plot was and how realistic it felt. There was definitely a ton to dissect in this book, so I feel like it would be incredible for a book club. And honestly, it's a rare book that I would say that I would recommend it to anyone, which I feel like doesn't happen that often. This is a great book to give to your mom as a gift. Like, I just feel like this is a mom book, which are always the best books. I feel like moms just have the best taste in books. And whenever I read a book and I'm like, I could give this to my mom, it's usually a 5-star book, and The Nightingale was a 5-star book for me as well. I don't have too much more to say about it because I don't want to spoil it, and I just think that everyone should read it, and I feel like the book should just do the talking. It won a ton of awards, and it definitely deserved every single one of them. I know that it's a little bit older, and I'm a little bit late on the bandwagon, but I'm so glad that I hopped on, and I think that if you're looking for a book with really compelling characters and a great story that you really get wrapped up into, The Nightingale is a great choice. After I finished crying over The Nightingale, I got up out of my bed and I was like, I need to read something so lighthearted and so happy and so easy and fun because The Nightingale was just very heavy and the ending hit me really hard. And I went to my local half-price books and picked up Bunny You Should Ask by Elissa Sussman. I really wanted to like this book, and I really want to read romance books and find my little niche in romance and have that be in my reading rotation, but I am just so often let down. So we'll start off with some things that this book did well. And I just want to say that I would read another book by this author because I don't think the writing style was bad. And then I read a lot of 5-star reviews on Goodreads that I could give it its fair consideration. People love this book because it's a second chance romance, and I think that it's really written for the girlies with celebrity crushes because this book is about a reporter who writes a profile on her #1 celebrity crush who is playing James Bond in the latest Bond movie. Some of the things that I did not personally enjoy about this book that I don't necessarily think that they're objectively bad, and I don't think that anyone who enjoyed this book has bad taste. There was so much I didn't like in it, but I don't want to hate on it because I don't like doing that. There were just things that were not personally for me. So one of the things that was not for me was the characters. The two main characters were so mean to themselves, so self-sabotaging. Both had pretty horrible imposter syndrome, which was relatable but got annoying, and horrible hangovers. She described her hangover in here and I did not enjoy any minute of it. And then like this girl had a photo of her celebrity crush as her wallpaper for a moment in the book as an adult with a full-time job. And it just wasn't relatable. I don't know anyone that does that. The side characters, Katie and Ollie, were so much more endearing than the main characters. And as soon as I had that thought, I was like, this book it's not for me. I wish that she had kicked her love interest to the curb and just hung out with her friends for the whole book. I would have enjoyed that so much more if she didn't have a love interest and she was just vibing with the side characters. Another thing that wasn't for me was the characters' relationship together. So I didn't like them individually and I also didn't like them together because reporter Girly did not seem to actually want to get to know this man. It seemed like she just wanted to be with her crush and not actually know him as a person, which could have been an interesting way to reverse roles because I feel like that happens more often swapped. It didn't really feel like it was done purposefully though. I was lost on why he liked her because they just didn't seem to have like real people chemistry. It just seemed like a crush and then they were like, we're in love. And then it was like, I don't know, it was weird, second chance, I don't know. Another thing that I didn't like about this book was that it felt really choppy. The plot felt like it was dragging and it constantly switched back and forth between then and now. And I think I personally would have liked more of the now moments than the then, but I kept forgetting what was happening because of how quickly it changed. It was like then, now, article, Sunday, now but remembering last night, in a dream. Like it was just so all over the place and I feel like I got whiplash. I would have liked this book more, I think, if I had a celebrity crush that I was so obsessed with and was able to like put myself in her shoes. And then I also think I would have liked this book more had I understood the movie references, which is my own personal shortcoming because I've not seen enough movies. But since she was reporting on this actor, there were definitely a lot of movie references and I feel like books with movie references in them are always so much more enjoyable if you understand the movie reference, and I did not. So it did make me want to watch more movies this year, which is one of my goals for 2024. I also think I would have liked this more if, and this is kind of a spoiler, if she had chosen her career over the man. I think that I would have liked that ending a lot. And ultimately, just not for me, but 50% of people on Goodreads rated this book either 4 or 5 stars. I don't think that the writing style is bad. I just didn't love the characters and I didn't like their relationship. So all that was left for me was a few pages of dog and side characters, and that was not enough for me personally. I gave this book, I think, a 2 out of 5 stars. Next, I read the second book in the Caraval series that I mentioned in my November wrap-up, I believe. So Caraval, the first book in the series, tells the story of two sisters, Tella and Scarlett, who are living on this island with an overprotective father, and they're kind of trapped there. And they get an invitation to Caraval, which is it's like this magical performance game thing where the audience is participating. And it's hard to tell in Caraval what's real for the main character and what's part of this game. As a reader, it's kind of hazy and you're kind of in the same shoes as the main character, which was really fun. So you get this amazing magical vibey world. The magic system's a little vague, it's not really explained, but Caraval was told from the older sister Scarlett's perspective. The things that I really liked about Caraval were the world building. You could definitely argue that this world building was a little bit vague, but to me it made it feel very magical and it let my imagination kind of run wild. I feel like this is truly the type of book that I would have eaten up if I had read it when I was 15. I think it would have honestly been my 15-year-old self's favorite book. So in that way, I felt so healing to my inner teenager to read this series and to be reading this series. So then in Legendary, the second book of the series, they do the game again. And this time it's from Tella's perspective. They do like a second game. So they're playing this game another time and it's from Tella's perspective. And we follow her through sort of a similar journey that Scarlet, her older sister, went on, but the stakes were a little bit different and the magic... Piper, let's hang out. Come here, get up. Oh, she's been laying in the sun, so she's so warm. Where were we? So the magic system was the same, but Tella's tasked with saving a loved one. I hope that that's not a spoiler. I don't really think it is. I'll be pretty vague. And some of the differences, similarities, likes, and dislikes that I had with Legendary, which was, I think, my least favorite book of the series, although I'm not done with the third one, so I'm not 100% sure. I liked Caraval more than Legendary, but I still enjoyed this. And some of the things that were different were that there was less world building here, obviously, since it's the same magic system, and they're in a different location, but the game's the same, so it's not as much build-up. I kind of missed the world building of the first one and how new and fresh it felt. Then Tella versus Scarlet, I thought that I wanted it to be from Tella's perspective. Honestly, reading Caraval, I was like, I kind of wish it was from Tella's perspective, but being in her perspective, she felt very like young. I think she's 16. Her internal monologue wasn't my fave, and it kind of got worse as the book went on and she was tasked with making a decision. And when she was making this decision, she is going back and forth and back and forth. And I swear it felt like she was going back and forth for like 700 pages. It was probably in reality 100 pages that she was going back and forth, but it kind of took away from the impact of the decision and the results of the decision. How long she deliberated on it made it just less impactful. I think that the writing style in these books, I feel like, has to be mentioned because it's gonna be so hit or miss for people. Personally, I love the flowery, descriptive, poetic language in a book, but it does feel a little bit 2014 Tumblr, and I can see exactly why people would think that it is cheesy or annoying or overly descriptive or unnecessary. I saw some Goodreads reviews about the first book where people hated it. I loved it personally because I was on Tumblr in 2014 reblogging quotes, and the quotes that I was reblogging are similar to the ones that are found in this book. So again, like my 15, 16-year-old self would have loved these books. Let me find a line from here to like give a good example. A quote from the first book is, "He tasted like midnight and wind and shades of rich brown and light blue, colors that made her feel safe and guarded." And here's one from Legendary. "The air tasted like wonder, like candied butterfly wings caught in sugared spider webs and drunken peaches coated in luck." So if quotes like that make you feel happy and reminiscent of your inner child, read these books. And if they make you want to gouge your eyeballs out, I would definitely stay away because the books are full of those quotes. Honestly, it'll be like multiple on a page, which I really was enjoying. It felt like fun and silly. Those types of quotes remind me of the quote, like, "The rest is rust and stardust," and the line from the Carly Simon song, "You Are So Vain," that says, "I had some dreams, they were clouds in my coffee." Just things that I would have gotten tattooed on myself if I had been allowed to get tattoos at age 15. Thank goodness that we have an age limit on those. These definitely are young adult books, which is fun, but just definitely something to keep in mind when you're picking them up. It's not gonna be the same level as an adult fantasy novel, and that can be a little bit jarring if you're used to reading adult fantasy novels, but they are really fun. The YA fantasy are so fun. I did feel like this was a long book because of Tella's internal monologue, and sections of the decision making should have been cut way back. I wish that I had been allowed to take a pass at editing because I feel like I could have really made this book go from good to great, which is just a delusional take from someone that has never edited anything longer than 10 pages. But that's the beauty of having a YouTube channel. You can just say whatever you want and no one stops you. I wish that I could read an adult fantasy book by Stephanie Garber. Stephanie Garber, if you're listening, I would like to request an adult fantasy book. Honestly, if she already has one, I'm gonna feel so dumb when I'm back editing this. Ultimately, I liked Caraval better than Legendary, but now that I'm reading Finale, and I'm like 100 something pages in, it kind of felt like Legendary was a necessary setup, and I feel like Finale is gonna be really good. I have high hopes. The plot is thickening. I'm excited about that. Why don't you show your little face? Show your face before I put you down. Say hello. For my final book of December, I read The Graveyard Book by Neil Gaiman. I've been wanting to read more books by Neil Gaiman, who wrote Coraline, which was one of my favorite movies growing up and a really great book that I read last year. Coraline and The Graveyard Book are Neil Gaiman's 2 children's book, but he's written in multiple genres. He's written graphic novels, and I will definitely be venturing out into his adult books this year because he's such an amazing author. From reading Coraline and The Graveyard Book, I think that I'm gonna read Stardust first, unless anyone has any other Neil Gaiman suggestions. But I wanted to read one of his books before seeing the movie because Coraline, the book and the movie are so similar. And since I watched the movie first, when I was reading Coraline, I was just seeing the movie played in my head, which was amazing, but I wanted to read another one of his books without knowing anything about it first, and this had been sitting on my shelf for so long. I actually don't remember buying it. I feel like it just showed up one day. Just popped up out of the blue like the U2 albums on Apple Music. The Graveyard Book is actually being made into a movie by Disney with release date TBD. The Graveyard Book starts out with this boy's family getting killed, and he's a baby, and he wanders into a graveyard and escapes the killer accidentally, also avoids the trauma of the murder by doing this. Like, just this joyful introduction, like he's just, oh, wandering, he missed the murder, incredible. And then the ghosts essentially adopt him and raise this boy. This book was heavily inspired by The Jungle Book, so think of The Jungle Book but a little bit more spooky. Now let me take you on my reading journey with this book. So this started out really slow for me, which I think was probably partially my fault because I read it in really small chunks. So I feel like it made it feel really drawn out at the beginning, and I wasn't captivated for about the first 60% of the book. I kind of felt like I was waiting for something to happen, and I don't usually read reviews until I'm finished with the book because I want to have time with it to think of my own opinions before I look at the opinions of other people. But I did pause in the middle of this book to read some reviews because I feel like I just wasn't really getting it. And I think that the problem was that I didn't fully realize that it was a children's book, so I wasn't enjoying it as such. I read those reviews and I saw it compared to The Jungle Book, and I feel like I was able to enjoy it in a little bit of a new light. So after the first 60%, which was a little slow for me, I really started enjoying this book. So much to the point where I didn't want it to end. I was very, very sad when it ended, and I wanted to live in the last 40% of the book for months and months. I watched Wednesday while I was in the middle of reading it, so I had this beautiful Tim Burton style imagery in my head as I was reading this and was able to kind of picture some of that in this book, which made it a more visually appealing, imaginative experience for me. There were a few really profound lines that were just thrown in there so casually, which is just an amazing thing to do in a kid's book, and it wasn't overdone, if that makes sense. Like, the point of the book didn't feel like it was to be profound, but there were some great takeaways. And one of the little nuggets that I really liked was someone saying that you can move anywhere, but you can't escape yourself. Things like that are just very wise and great to kind of have ingrained in your head if you read this as a child. If I had a kid, I would definitely read this book to them because it was like one of those books that's enjoyable for an adult and a kid. It felt like just a nice, safe, spooky read if you're looking for something that's spooky but not gross. It was definitely Coraline vibes because it was Neil Gaiman vibes. A little bit less creepy in my opinion, but I think also seeing Coraline before that just gives me more pictures in my head, so this maybe is creepier or could be more creepy just depending on how the movie ends up, but reading it didn't feel quite as creepy as Coraline, quite as scary or suspenseful. I loved the naming convention of the villains. I'm not going to say more than that because I don't want to spoil it, because I truly want everyone to pick this book up and have the same fun with it that I did. I loved the character of the poet in this book, Nehemiah Trott. He's one of the ghosts in the graveyard because he was so silly and helpful and truly was just exactly how I would want to be if I was a ghost. And then I loved, this is a slight spoiler, but the back kind of hints at it, so it's not really a spoiler, but you can skip ahead if you don't want to hear it. But I loved nobody venturing out into the real world. This is when the book turned around for me, when he left and was able to see the real world through the eyes of someone that was raised by ghosts in a graveyard and had a different upbringing and a different family structure. Like, it was just amazing. Things started clicking. The beginning was tied in amazingly. It made everything make so much more sense. And then again, I just want to emphasize that because it's a children's book, it's so like gently spooky. spooky, which would make it a great read if you don't love spooky things but still want to get in the spooky spirit come October, or for parents reading aloud to kids, because I promise you, you and your child will love this book. That's all I've got. It was a great reading month. I gave The Graveyard Book 5 stars. Legendary, I think 3-ish stars. Funny You Should Ask, 2 stars, and The Nightingale 5 stars. I'm really bad at rating things with stars, and I'm really generous with my 5-star ratings, so I don't like to focus on that, because if I think too much about it, it's like such a rabbit hole for me. So just know that when I rate things, it's probably not accurate to how I feel, and just know that it was stressful for me to rate it. So I hope that you appreciate me putting star values on it, because it's tough. It's really tough. But those were all the books that I read in December. I hope that you enjoyed hearing about them. Let me know if there are any that you are going to add to your to-be read list, or if there's any that you've already read. If you liked them, I would love to hear any thoughts, comments, questions, etc. And let me know what else you would like me to do for videos, because I am creating a content schedule and need more ideas. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Bye.